Guys, welcome back to the National High School Football Podcast that, quite frankly, everybody wants to see. Do you know why that is? Because we consistently have the best football minds in America appear on this show for a full sit-down interview, Joe. So we go beyond the X's and O's to give you guys a glimpse of how these premier head coaches build their programs. And so tonight's guest returns to the program after a huge come-from-behind win over a fellow top 25 opponent, St. Joseph's Prep. And so we'll get into that in a few minutes. So with that said, joining us on the screen is the head coach himself of the American Heritage Patriots down in Plantation, Florida, Coach Mike Smith. Coach, welcome to the show.
How you guys doing?
We're doing great. Hey, Coach, the last time you were on this show, it was after a really easy game when you beat Lowndes at Lowndes.
Oh, my gosh. This again? Come on, man. Let's move on.
This game was a little tougher this past weekend.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that Lowndes game was actually my first game as head coach. So, it was a great experience though. And, they did a really good job of hosting us, but yeah, this was a much different game this week for sure.
Yeah, so Coach, tell us, we were all watching it on TV. I wasn't down there. Tell us, obviously we knew the weather was a little bad. It was raining in the first half. Tell us, your thoughts on those first 24 minutes.
Well, we put on a clinic for sure of how to lose a game. We were doing everything possible to lose a game. And listen, I want to first give a lot of credit to Coach Roken and the job that he's done up there at St. Joe's. They have a hell of a football team. Being a Northeast guy originally from Jersey, I knew that they were going to be well coached. I knew they were going to be tough. They were going to be disciplined, and listen, they did a tremendous job out the gates of really, they really dominated us in the first half and in every phase. And they, like I said, that's a tremendous football team that they have up there.
Coach, you won a state championship last year, and so that had to be a great feeling. Right. So last week, now you're playing another state champion from last year, a very good St. Joseph's Prep team. And you had to overcome a lot of adversity. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put something on the screen, get you to comment about it. All right. So, there was several key takeaways that, after watching all the podcasts and reading the articles about it, that kind of stuff. So let me ask you, at halftime, you guys are down big. Mm-hmm. Sloppy weather maybe explains part of it, but you didn't have the big start that you wanted to have. So your guys are facing all kinds of adversity. What do you say to players that have the talent that your team has to get them refocused? How do you turn that ship around? Because you guys did a fantastic job of it in the second half.
Right. So there's kind of a lot of parts to that. We played probably one of the toughest schedules in the country last year and went through a lot of adversity as well. So, I think they were almost experts on adversity at this point. But,
yeah.
To be honest with you, this is you just tell the guys to keep playing. I mean, and I know that sounds cliche and all that, and one play at a time, but really that's mm-hmm. what you tell the guys. And this is not just in this game. Like I stress that all the time. The way we practice, we try to maximize the 24 hours that we get in a day, and we try to win those 24 hours, and we just try and stack days. And again, I know that sounds cliche, but it's the easiest way of just trusting the process and just. There's no 20. So we're down 21-0 at halftime. And I told the guys, there's no 21-point touchdown to get us back in this. We got to chip away and we got to come out and just focus on the next play. Don't worry about the scoreboard. Just keep playing. Similar situation going back to that same year that last time we talked, that state championship that year we played Miami Central. And we were actually down 31-10 at halftime. And it was pretty much the same thing. We just got back in and we just kept chipping away. And unfortunately we came up short in that game, but it was 30, we got it to the point where it was 38-31 and we were on a 28-yard line. And unfortunately, we fumbled the ball away, but it's again, you just tell the guys, just keep playing and let's just see how this thing plays out. So that's really all you can do in that situation is just focus on the next play and, make sure that you win you win your assignment and, hopefully that they continue to stack and we get a little bit of momentum going. So, and that's what happened.
Coach, what I saw on the game, and again, we watch a lot of high school football, and half the time the special teams really are not good, no matter what area of the country you're watching.
Yeah.
Yours was excellent for the most part, as far as your kicker goes, Cade Bailey, 4 PATs and that game-winning field goal. How much do you stress that on a daily basis?
We do extra point and field goal every day. We do extra point and field goal every day. We usually have 2 special teams periods in our practice, so that is a big deal for us because we know that you can steal a game with special teams. You could also lose a game on special teams, and I thought we did a pretty good job. Except I tell the guys, okay, we're going to come out the second half, we're going to score, and we'll get right back into this thing. We came out the second half and had a punt blocked, and now we're down 28-0. But but no, special teams has been a big emphasis for us, and it always has. Through Mike Rump when he was here, and through Pat when when he was here, and I continue that just because again, it's an aspect of that again you can steal a game in special teams or you can lose a game on special teams, so you got to make sure that you're really buttoned up there.
So, Coach, tell us again. I'm surprised it took us so long to mention this name in this interview, but Dia, tell us how he was at halftime with his teammates.
So I told Dia this the other day, and Dia is all-time leading passer at Heritage. He was Florida Gatorade Player of the Year last year. He won the Elite 11, so he's got all the accolades, and he's had some big games. But I thought this was his best game, and the reason being is that he played a terrible first half, but his ability to pick himself back up and lead this group and figure it out himself. I think that was a huge step for him as far as his development goes. But he's a kid that we've had since 6th grade, I guess, here. So, I've just watched his development over the years, and just, obviously the physical traits he has now, and he's got the big arm and all that stuff. But, I've just watched him develop as a leader, and he really did. He put the team on our back, and I was just so impressed with that part of his game the other night. I don't know what the stats ended up being for him. I'm sure it wasn't one of his better games stats wise, but just just for him to come back that second half and say, I'm going to put you guys on my back, and we're going to get this thing done. It was a huge step for him.
Yeah, and he didn't do it alone. I mean,
right.
He had help from obviously your great running back you have now, Jonathan Bueno.
Yep.
And when I was watching the game, I was concentrating on your 4-star wide receiver going to Florida State, but the guy who made most of the big catches was Jamar Denson.
Another kid. So Jamar is a kid that I feel has been overlooked. I don't think a lot of people realize he was our second leading receiver last year behind Malachi Toney. But he's a kid that, I feel like he's been overlooked for whatever reason. I've heard size, I've heard speed, I've heard all that, but the kid can flat out play. And he played big in a lot of big games last year as well. And, for him to step up and really be that guy on Friday night, I mean, it just shows, it shows that he's got a chip on his shoulder, and he wants to prove to everybody, that he is that guy. And, he put on a show on a nationally televised game.
Coach, you talked about Cade Bailey, Dia Bell, Jamar Denson. I was watching a Rivals YouTube video that featured one of your running backs, Jonathan Bueno.
Bueno, yes.
Is he the heir apparent there at running back?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this is a kid I've been following since his Little League days, and this is his first year over here with us. But I mean, he's been better than I expected. Very coachable kid, and if you just watching the game, you see he's got a passion to win, and he willed a lot of the yards that he got Friday night, and again, this is why you come to American Heritage for, to play in these games and on the biggest stage. I mean, he's another one that really carried us in that second half, had 3 second half touchdowns, and really made a name for himself.
And let's talk about these running backs. I mean, the one that we always think of when we hear Heritage is that jersey sitting behind you,
right?
Class of 2013. 10 years later, you got Mark Fletcher, and then last season Byron Lewis, and now Jonathan.
Right.
So you're becoming running back if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a standard at that position here, and and I've been fortunate enough to, and I still am the running back coach as well here. So I've kind of been through the development of all of them. I mean, there's some other guys that we're missing in there. Khalil Herbert, who's been in the NFL for a little while now, played for Virginia Tech. It's just that those guys have a standard, and a lot of those guys come back. This is what they don't know. A lot of those guys come back and they train together. I mean, Sony has worked out with Mark Fletcher and Byron, and and he's been on the sidelines, and so he's kind of the lead guy in that group, and and there is a standard here, and that's kind of what I told Bueno when he came in here, and I am not easy on these guys. I've got a lot of pride in that position and what that position is, and but those guys come in, and a kid like Bueno that's come in and he's been very coachable. I mean, the sky's the limit for that kid. So it's again just kind of trying to live up to that standard, but also make their own mark.
Coach, is he what grade is he?
He's a junior. He's a 2027
2 seasons. All right, good.
Yep.
Coach, that third key that I had up on the screen a while ago was, it's never over until it's over. I'm sure you've said that to your kids a number of times, but the one word that I can think of that really encompasses all of that is the word grit.
Right.
Is that a good word to describe your team this year? And if it's so, why?
I think that's a perfect word. I think that's a perfect word for our program, actually. I mean, I and if you were at that Lowndes game a couple years ago, I mean, they came out with 80 kids, 90 kids, 100 kids. And I think a lot of people from the outside looking in think that, we have the same thing, but our roster every year is probably 45 to 55. And, we gotta coach these kids up. And a lot of these kids are playing all the snaps and they're tough, man. They're tough. And it's the way that they condition. It's the way that we work in the weight room. It's an all-year program. I am still the strength coach as well here. So, we take pride in that. And that's something that this program has always been about, at the end of the day, it all goes back to our base, which is the work. So, and again, the adversity that we faced the last 2 years now has really kind of set us up for games like this. I mean, last year we had an up and down season where win one, lose one, but the games that we were losing, we lost to Milton late in the game, really kind of on the last play, and they made an unbelievable call, and it was a great call, so I tip my hat to them. But Chaminade, we lost last year on a field goal with no time left on the clock. So it's these guys just battle, man. They do. They just battle, and again, they believe and they listen to the things that I'm preaching to them. We talk about it all the times: details, urgency, execution, just being relentless and tough. So and they believe it, and that's a big part of when you see comebacks like that we had. I mean, it's almost expected, to be honest with you, and that's a crazy thought. And I don't think at any point in time where we were in the game, we're looking and saying, "Oh my God, like we're going to get blown out of this. We're going to get run out of the stadium right now." It was just not. Just keep playing. So that's a great word to describe this group.
Coach, did you pay attention to the other games going on? Like, did you stay or come back and did you watch those other games on Saturday?
I watched them on ESPN. We had some bad weather here the next day too, so I did. I watched both. I watched St. Thomas and I watched Chaminade. We play both of those. We actually play Chaminade next week, but we play both of those teams. But I just for again just to watch South Florida and how we performed. I definitely tuned into those games.
Hey Larry, these schools, I've been down there. I've driven to all three. They're all like 20 minutes apart, basically. I mean, with
Chaminade's probably about 20. I mean, St. Thomas is literally right down the street from us, probably 10 minutes. So
you can just drive in a triangle and go to three. But and again, he was the only one of those three to win last weekend. The other two went down. Again, they played the number 1 in 4 teams in America they went down to, but still, that just goes to show you the greatness that the talent pool is down there within that 10-20 mile radius.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest, I think, the biggest things. A lot of people are saying now, South Florida football, they got beat by, all these yeah, but we're all fighting. I mean, not just those three. I mean, you got the Dade schools, and there's like 85 schools in this small area, all fighting for the same talent.
Right.
So,
I mean, you had a lot of states, claiming relevancy after this weekend. But however, look at the teams that you guys played. It's all about strength of schedule and playing the best.
Absolutely.
You played a highly ranked team. Those other two played a highly ranked team down in Miami. Northwestern played Olu, which is the third best team in the Trinity League behind Bosco and Mater Dei. So it's all good as long as you're playing each other.
That's
like
right.
in our poll, you'll never drop for losing to a team ranked higher than you.
Right.
You know, it's common sense.
See,
But
and that's a big thing for us too. Like, so I played the number 1 team in Pennsylvania last week. I've got Chaminade this week. Then I go next the following week and play the number 1 team in Louisiana. Then we come back and play Miami Central. But I'll be honest with you, we kind of did the same thing last year. We played Milton, we played Central, we played Chaminade, we played St. Thomas, and I will never schedule. We will never schedule soft ever because I saw what it does. It really does. I mean, everybody was saying, "Oh, you're going to be battle tested," and when you're in it, you're like, "Oh my God!" Like I hope we really are going to get battle tested. But by the time we got to the playoffs, we were really momentum proof. I mean, we fell behind in the second round, 14-0, came back. The state semifinal game, we were up 28-7. They got back in the game, but we battled back. Even in the state game, we were up by 2 touchdowns and they tied it. And then so it was back, but our kids were really battle tested and they were momentum proof. So I enjoy playing these big games. It shows where we're at, and, it puts the kids in a really big environment, and, it's important, I think.
Coach, when we started this company 10 years ago, you guys are one of our first clients. We had one of the first games I put together was in Milton when you guys beat St. Joe's from Jersey.
Absolutely. I remember
St. Joe's Montvale. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that game. It was about 105 degrees on the field.
It was so hot that day. Yeah.
I remember.
Coach, a while ago you said, when you came up to Lowndes a few years ago, you noticed how many players Lowndes had, and your team didn't have quite the number of players. So now you fast forward and you schedule all these really, really tough games week after week after week. What kind of conditioning program do you have in place down there?
Yeah, we take pride in that. We take pride.
I can tell by the smile on your face.
We've always taken like that's really what we bank on. Like we really do go. I push these kids. I put them through a lot. You know what I'm saying? I put them through a lot. And you can ask the guy that jersey behind me, Sony Michel and Isaiah McKenzie, those Georgia guys that went through it too. And and we lift all year round, and a lot of that it's not even performance based at this point. Now it's just to try and keep these guys healthy. But no, we run and we lift, and in the off season I push my big guys towards wrestling. I push my skill guys towards track, and then in the summertime I make it tough on them. I mean, it's kind of a blend of scientific principles and some stuff that you got to go outside the scientific principles and see if you can break them mentally a little bit. But we practice every day from 4 to 6, which is the hottest part of the day, and one of the hottest part of the days. So we prepare them for game like conditions. So that's but we have to, because again, we only have 45, 50. You turn around and you say, all right, well, who do we have left? We'll grab that kid, put him in, and I've got a tremendous coaching staff too, and they really do a good job. And I owe really all my success to them, because they really do a good job of preparing and getting these kids ready to go.
Coach, tell us about that Edna Carr game coming up. I know it's been talked about for a while because Pat always wanted to go back there because that's his high school, right? But is it still being played in the Superdome?
Yeah, it's going to be played in the Superdome. We kind of just finalized some of that stuff this past week. Nice. But yeah, that's a game that we've been trying to play probably for 5 or 6 years now. Yeah. We've scheduled it twice, and I think hurricanes came through both times, and so if hopefully this year it's meant to be. And Coach Brown has done a really good job of communicating. He called me. We tried to do it last year and we couldn't make it work, and then he called me this year. He's like, Coach, I might have an opening week 4. I said, man, we'd absolutely be interested in doing that. So, and they've got a great program, and they've really, again, they're probably one of the best teams in Louisiana, and they've got a really talented group. So it'll be a good game and another big time atmosphere for our kids.
Coach, you're quickly establishing yourself as a premier national type of program, but you're also considered a Florida State powerhouse. Who would you consider your rivals now? Are your rivals on a national scale, or you still have some regional rivals there in Florida?
No, I would say you still got the guys in this area. I mean, it's always this area. The St. Thomas's and the Chaminades, probably now are the two biggest ones. I mean, we went for a while there where Chaminade couldn't beat us, and now I got to get over this hump. Hopefully next week is and see, because they've won 3 in a row against us. So and then St. Thomas. I mean, last year was the first time we beat them. So that's again, they're only 10 minutes down the street and we're all competing for the same kids. So but it's a good, healthy rivalry. And I know a lot of those guys, and a lot of those coaches have a lot of respect for them, but it's always the local stuff first, especially in South Florida. And then every year it seems that there's another one that pops up. Somebody in our district. Like last year, we had to beat Norland twice.
Yep.
It was Cardinal Gibbons for a bunch of years. Miami Northwestern was in our district. We had to beat them twice. So there's always the pop-up one too of what's in the district. So.
And Larry, what's cool about this is in the state of Florida, classification means nothing. So the 3 teams he just mentioned, Mike, tell Larry what class Aquinas. Right? Yeah, Mike, tell Larry what class Aquinas, Chaminade, and you are in.
So Chaminade,
they're all different.
So we got 1A through 5. What is it now? What is it? 7 now? Now it's 7. So we're 4. Chaminade is 1A. St. Thomas, I believe, is
Aquinas is what, 6?
5 or 6, I think.
Yeah. So Larry, they're all rivals, but none of them play in the same class based on enrollment.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Chaminade, I mean, they're a 1A football team.
What do they have? 400 kids in the whole school?
Something like that. But they've got 40 Division I. Well, I don't know, 40 is a little bit exact. Wow. But they got Division I players all over that team.
Well, especially with Jeremiah a couple of years ago and that quarterback. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and Damian Jones does a really good job down there with that program, and and as does Roger Harriet. And but yeah, I mean, and being a Jersey guy originally, you had the parochials and you had the Group 4s and the Group 1, and it's, but I don't know what it is now in Jersey. I talked to.
It's not like in very few states, like in Jersey, the non-public Group A, like Bergen, Bosco, St. Joe's, the winner of that is always considered the best team in the state because the publics just aren't good. In Florida, the publics are decent, so they can compete and beat the privates, as we've seen in the past with teams like Lakeland and Cocoa and Venice and those types.
Yeah, they've even talked it down here about doing an open division.
They really should. They really should.
Where it would be a bunch of us. I think they would do it by max preps, the top 16. I don't know. There've been so many ideas thrown out. I mean, when I talked to you guys last, we had it was broken down in the suburb and the rural division.
Yeah, that was Metro. Yeah,
or Metro. That's what it was. It was Metro. It was Metro, suburb, and there was some other stuff like. But that's how I ended up playing Central in the state game. but it was like we all cannibalized each other that because it was like the whole division was like Northwestern and us and we had to go through Bowles and Gibbons, and it was crazy.
Wow. So Coach, we've talked about some players that we expect to have a big year, like Benson and Bueno, Bell, and others. Who are the kids that are kind of lurking in the background that might surprise us all that we need to be on the lookout for?
Well, I've got one right now, and he's going to be up there. He's going to Georgia Tech next year. Is Kamani Morales, another kid that's going to end up being a 3-year starter for us. He's super explosive linebacker. He could actually probably play safety, which is crazy because when he first came to Heritage, he was a 185-pound defensive end and ended up having 12 sacks. But Georgia Tech's getting a good one with him. There's a lot of guys on that defense. Rodarian Telez is going to Toledo. He plays defensive end. Corey Simon is a real, at D tackle. He's a little bit undersized, but he's going to James Madison.
Hey, Coach, is that Corey Simon Jr.?
I get that all the time.
Remember, I'm a Florida State guy.
We got that all the time. I asked the same question when he transferred in last year, but. No, but he plays. I mean, he plays like him. I mean, he's super explosive, and he's a James Madison commit. Isaac Tanis is a Western Kentucky commit on the defensive side. Kid that really is kind of flying under the radar right now is Dylan Bennett, who's our Mike linebacker. He was first team All-State last year, and he's really, if he's probably about 5'11". If he was 6'2", he'd have every power four in the country on him. In the secondary, we've got some guys too. Derek Nichols is going to USF.
You got a 4-star junior, Amari Nugent, right?
Amari Nugent, yep, and who a lot of people are finding out about right now as well. So, on that defensive side of the ball, we've got some guys that are trying to really make a name for themselves. But those would be some guys. And then on the offensive line, we got a kid, Aiden Hartnett, who's a junior. He will end up being a 4-year starter for us when it's all said and done. He's probably one of the better linemen in South Florida. So, we've got some guys that again are going to make a name for themselves coming up this season, and we're excited about them.
Hey, Larry, just so you know, on the roster right now, he has 10 seniors that are rated 3-star or greater. So that's a great senior class.
Well, listen,
the class that I've had, matter of fact, the crazy thing about that is, again, a lot of those guys came in that their first game was at Lowndes. Malachi Tony was going to start for Miami on Sunday night, started in that game. Coy Jean Noel was also going to go to Georgia Tech, play wide receiver. He started that night. Kid Brandon Bennett, who didn't play on Friday because he's dealing with a little bit of an injury right now. That's going to Florida State. He started in that game. So it's I talking to you guys. It just, I can't believe how fast it's gone. Can't believe how fast it's gone that these guys are already seniors. That felt like the other day that we were talking, getting ready for that game and up in Lowndes, and now these guys are kind of finishing up, which is, it's crazy to believe that how it's already year 4.
So what you're saying, Coach, is Lowndes launched all these players' careers. That's what you're saying.
I'm absolutely saying, because Coy had a touchdown in that game. Malachi had 100 yards in that game. Brandon Bennett had a touchdown in that game. So And I go to Georgia a lot, or I'll go to North Carolina, and we'll drive past that area, and it's a lot of good memories, from that night, and that's a special place for me. And it's crazy though. I drive by there, and that indoor wasn't there. Indoor wasn't there. I mean, now we got dressed in a batting cage that we probably could have played the game in, but that indoor wasn't there, and that thing looks pretty impressive from the highway.
Coach, that seems to be a growing thing in Georgia. You know how football crazy we are up here, and the resources are following it. Georgia schools, we don't mind spending money on football. You know that. Right. So do you see that kind of facility upgrades down in where you are?
No, unfortunately not. Unfortunately not. I think that's part of the struggle down here is, even the way coaches are being paid in certain areas and stuff like that. I mean, and that's why you see a lot of good coaches leaving this area to go, to go to Georgia or Texas or some other places, just because of the resources, and it does make it tough. Now, listen, I'm blessed that we're at the school I'm at, and the owner does a really good job of giving me everything that I need. But that is definitely an issue, in South Florida and in Florida in general, that I don't see the resources and the development going into a lot of these programs.
You're right. The latest that I can think of, Florida State championship coach down in Daytona, Maitland, a couple of years ago, Coach Rowland came up to Camden County, become head coach.
Yeah.
So it's happening more and more.
Well, and we had the ex-St. Thomas Aquinas head coach, defensive coordinator, Matt Helmer, who's a friend of the show. Mm-hmm. He went up to Atlanta, and he went to Johns Creek, and now he's at Peachtree Ridge, and he played in that Broward event too.
Yeah, when he was at Johns Creek, I think we practiced there. We were playing in some show.
Milton. No, I think that's when you went to Milton that year and played St.
It was
Joe's.
either Milton or we played another team too when we were up there. The year before we played in Atlanta, but it might have been, it was Milton. It was one when we went to Milton. We stopped there, we practiced there, and then we went. We played the team from Jersey. St. Joe's Montvale, I believe it was.
Yep, that's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, looking at your schedule, any team kind of concerns you, kind of worries you, keeps you up at night?
Yeah.
I'd say Madonna,
all of them?
The
Carr,
whole schedule.
Central. Yeah.
The whole schedule. But even with to that point, and again, I know this is going to sound cliche, but we don't. I make sure we're not looking ahead. I mean,
Yeah.
Chaminade is next up, and like I said, Chaminade's given us some problems here lately. So I mean, that's the next one. And if you start to look at that schedule, you'll kind of get overwhelmed by, man, how are we going to overcome all this? And you just got to you really do have to take it one game at a time and lock in, because then you gotta regroup after that, see what you got, and kind of lick your wounds a little bit. All right, who we got left, and who's gonna be, and then okay, well, let's coach them up and get ready for the next week. But now Chaminade is the one that concerns me right now. After that, I'll be in the car, and then we'll go from there. But we're getting healthy this bye week, and we're looking forward to getting ready for Chaminade next week.
Hey, Coach, the coach in me says after watching the Chaminade St. Francis game is you ought to run the ball about 60 times.
Yeah, well, hey, Chaminade, they started the season 0-2 last year, and then
I know they did.
They were on their third or fourth quarterback. I don't even remember what it
Yeah.
was, and then next thing I know, okay, well, yeah, now we're in a game, and I believe that game was like 48-45 or something ridiculous like that. But and it's a rivalry game, so I know what I'm going to get with Chaminade.
Right, and not many teams have the offensive line of St. Francis averaging 300 pounds a guy.
Listen, it seemed like every time the announcer was talking about it, was another SEC school they're going to.
Yeah,
this guy's going to Alabama. This guy's. I was like, man.
And you talk about schools without facilities. I've never been to a school that has the least amount of quality facilities, and I've been there. They're one of my top clients. They do a lot with a very little. Let's just say
are they still playing home games at Morgan State? Or is that what they were doing?
They rotate between Morgan State, Johns Hopkins, Under Armour campus. They do those three. They have a park in Baltimore called Patterson Park. Okay. Once in a while, if nothing else is available, they'll go there. That's why all these years they've had to play so many games on the road.
Right. So the Under Armour, because we actually early on in the process we had kind of talked back and forth with possibly going up there and playing them. I think that there was some back and forth with us being a Nike elite school actually playing at the Under Armour. So you know how that goes. But
I know.
But how that Under Armour facility looked like, it was pretty impressive, though.
It's really nice. Yeah, it doesn't hold a lot of people, maybe 1,500 at the most, but it's real nice.
Gotcha.
Coach, this is my last question I have for you, and it's meant to be a serious, kind of lighthearted question, if that even makes sense. But here it is. A while ago, you said that just within spitting distance, basically, you have all these great programs and schools around you, and everybody's aware of Florida's transfer rules, that kind of stuff. So what's the draw to American Heritage other than Mike Smith as a head coach? What's the draw?
I don't know if it's Mike Smith as the head coach, but I do think if you want to go down that, it is the whole package. Like I said, we've got the strength and conditioning, that again, I'm still in charge of, and we're in season with that. So player development, we are one of the top private schools in the country from an educational standpoint. So, I tell guys all the time, like, if you're coming to American Heritage and you're blessed enough to play, football for us, I mean, use that blessing that it just opened a huge door for you, because all the connections that you make at this school as well. So, it's the connections, it's the player development. We obviously play good football as well, but I think it's the total package. And then, a big part of it, when I took the job in 2013 as the full-time strength coach, I really had a vision, kind of what, University of Miami used to be, where all the players came back and they trained there in the off season. And that's still the case. I mean, they all come back and train with me. And again, I talked about it a little while ago, is, current running backs training with Sony or Mark Fletcher and guys like that. But I mean, and on any given day, I mean, Tyson Campbell trained with me all summer. Pat Surtain, little Pat, is in once in a while. Brian Burns is out there. So, just the environment of those guys working. And I spoke on, the really that's our base here is the work ethic, and again, is the development process. So that's kind of I can't speak on the other schools. I've only really been at this school, and I know what we do as far as developing players, and as people and as students, and academically, the whole nine. So I know what this place is and what it brings, and I've seen how successful our guys are. So that's all I can sell as far as our program goes.
Hey, Larry, I was introduced to the school in 2016. My kid was playing for Don Bosco, who's, at that time was real high end up here in Jersey and nationally. And we went down there and they beat us 21-0. So, I learned that hard, but it's a great school. It's a great campus, like a little college campus. The academics is out of this world. You see where the top kids go to school every year. You're talking Ivies and the highest level of public and private college. So it's a great mix of when you say student athlete, great academics and great sports. Not only football, but a lot of other sports are real good.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. We've got. We won state championships this year, and golf, tennis, baseball won this year. Softball got to the state championship. Girls basketball got to the state championship. Girls soccer, I think they won for like the 10th time or something like that. So we're all chasing the girls soccer coach here. So, but no, it's again, and then it's we don't have a lot of students. And I think our enrollment is maybe in high school. We're K through 12. I think our enrollment in high school is maybe 1,500, something like that. So everybody kind of roots for everybody and pulls for everybody. It's definitely a unique environment. So, like I said, I've been blessed to be here as long as I've been here.
Joe, you got any more questions for the coach?
I think we're good, Coach. Just want to wish you the best of luck on that gauntlet of a schedule you have. I love working with you in your program. Obviously, we started our company for guys like you who want to play the best every year, and we're happy you're a client, and we look forward to working with you through 2026 and on and on and on. Because Larry, whenever I call these guys, they'll take on anybody. They're an awesome client, and very few teams. They're a desirable opponent for all the right and just reasons. Let's just say that.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, listen, congratulations on a big come from behind win last week. Let's not keep us on our in suspense going forward, but congratulations on a huge win. And listen, give us a little bit of time. We're going to invite you back up to Lowndes for a rematch. How about that?
It sounds good. It's great
man,
catching up with you guys. Like I said, it seems like just the other day that we talked, and here we are 4 years later, and still
absolutely.
So appreciate
guys. Listen, if you've enjoyed this program tonight, catch us on our replays with other premier football minds across the country. And of course, Joe, they can always catch us on our website, nationalhsfb.com. And that's a message board that you can visit all year round and join in on the national landscape when it comes to high school football. So for Joe Mamone, Coach Mike Smith, I'm Larry Godwin. You guys have been watching another great episode of nationalhsfb.com. Good night, guys.
Good night.
See ya.